In the spring, I flipped over the curriculum from boxing to kickboxing. Kickboxing is just a little bit more versatile when it comes to things like cross training, especially for runners and cyclists. If you're interested in knowing why that is, you should look up planes of movement for the human body. When you look it up, you realize that running and cycling operate on this like single plane of movement. So you end up using the same muscles over and over again. Whereas kickboxing, because of the nature of the sport and the techniques that are required, pretty much covers every plane of motion. In that respect, it makes it a pretty good sport to play around with if you're the kind of person that's like doing running or cycling or any combination or derivative of those two sports. Kickboxing is one of those things that once you start doing it and you get good at it, you're actually covering a bunch of different bases, because not only is it great cross training and challenges you in different movement patterns than you're maybe used to, but it's also not bad for self-defense. And I mean, we could all use a little more self-defense training, couldn't we? I was supposed to train this morning, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I decided to take it easy and not push myself any harder than I needed to. I mean, if I was being really honest, I'd say I have a full-blown calf tear. Now, the problem with the lower leg is that the Achilles tendon, the soleus muscle that's underneath your like outer kind of calf muscle, the gastrocnemius, depending on how you want to pronounce it, it's pretty complex. And when you get a pull at the back of your lower leg, it can be difficult to figure out whether you're this close to rupturing your Achilles tendon or if you've just got a different grade of tear in one of the major calf muscles. I don't know what I have right now, but I know that taking an extra day off or two isn't gonna hurt my running, but might prevent me from needing emergency surgery to reattach a tendon in my lower leg. And anytime I can avoid emergency surgery, that's a good time. I knew that I had kind of pulled something in my calf during my last run. Luckily, if it is a tear, it's like kind of the lower grade tears. Sometimes you'll see muscle tears graded like 1, 2, and 3. And this particular tear feels like it's kind of like in the 1, 1.5 range. So the irony being that I went to the trails, because trails are a lot easier to run on than the pavement, and I end up pulling a muscle running on the trails. Awesome. If you're going to be pushing your body to different types of extremes, well, there's a good chance that your body's going to push back at some point. And this is just my body pushing back. Honestly, even if the Achilles tendon completely ruptured, I don't even think that would be in the top 5 for the worst injuries I've ever had. So, yeah. If you divide people up in the sense that some people have hard skills and some people have soft skills, you're going to find that it's very difficult to put a price on soft skills. And I would categorize counseling, life coaching, anything that's kind of in that realm as a soft skill. When you're dealing with soft skills, it can be very difficult to figure out what a reasonable price for that information is. And hard skills, usually the market will determine what the value is. If you're a bricklayer, and there are many bricklayers, you're probably going to get paid less than in a situation where somebody desperately needs a bricklayer and you're the only one available. Soft skills, you could argue that, yeah, if you're the only life coach in a city, people might think that you're more valuable. But when it comes to soft skills, that's generally not the case. If you're the only life coach in a city, everybody thinks you're a hippie. My view of it is that if you have good information, put it out there. Even if somebody else steals it, which happens to me all the time. My information gets plagiarized constantly. But plagiarism isn't the issue. Plagiarism is just a minor part of it. The reality of it is that even if somebody steals your idea, their execution isn't going to be as good as yours if you're an expert. And I'm willing to bet that my execution of my ideas is better than a plagiarist's execution of my ideas. For that reason, I'm not afraid of sharing everything I know, because well, what's the worst that's going to happen? A bad imitation of it is going to exist. If you're always worried about people stealing your ideas, you're going to come off as a little bit paranoid and probably a little bit arrogant too, because if you put up a paywall for every single thing that you know about, honestly, I think you're overestimating your value. Take kickboxing, for instance. Kickboxing is just kickboxing. There isn't really too much to it, is there? The principles of kickboxing are well established and well known. Okay, so you could take kickboxing from anybody, right? And you would get the same outcome. Well, no, of course not. And that's because different coaches have different approaches to teaching those principles. So the old adage that principles are few but methods are many, that's exactly the truth. So don't kid yourself. I have a method that I teach kickboxing and boxing with, and that method is near and dear to me. And even in my hometown, I will occasionally teach students who will take my material and then teach other people. And they don't really credit me back for it, which is tantamount to stealing intellectual property. But it's martial arts. And in the end, martial arts, it's not the most honorable industry when it comes to being an instructor in it. You think it would be. I'm just under an hour away from my class, and traffic hasn't been nearly as bad as it usually is, which means that I've got a little bit of extra time. And a little bit of extra time means that I'm gonna get myself a treat. Well, not a treat. I'm gonna get myself a mood booster, and that mood booster is coffee. Oh yeah. I just want to clarify something. I'm not getting this for me. I'm getting it for my students. If I have some coffee before the class, I'll be in a much better mood. If I'm in a good mood, that's positive for the group. If I'm in a bad mood, I'm going to totally take it out on them. Oh, that is so good. So good. Okay, at the gym. Good times. Not only am I at the gym, I'm at the gym on time. Well, ahead of schedule actually, by a half an hour. And I have a coffee. Yeah. I don't know. Does that mean anything? Probably not. Okay, see you after class. As you can see, I ended up doing a little bit of the boxing class, mostly because it just felt good to move around. And I gotta tell you something, that gym has been in my life, well, since I was like 12 years old. So I've been injured in there before, meaning that I've trained there while being injured. And I wouldn't even necessarily classify what's going on right now as being injured. I'm being cautious with my calf, because calf tears are things that you really should take seriously. And maybe boxing or kickboxing isn't like the greatest thing to, you know, test how solid a calf is feeling, but it felt really good to move around. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, it was a good class. There was lots of learning that went on. The coffee definitely helped. It kept me in a good mood, although the students might disagree. But for the most part, it was a good class. I enjoyed it. They seemed to enjoy it. There was lots of learning going on. And we ended up staying a little bit later than I meant to. It was the first class back after all the traveling that I needed to do and the race that I was doing. So I figured I would give them some extra time. They were all cool with that. It's always fun to get back teaching classes. If all goes well, I shouldn't have to cancel any classes between now and when I leave for my mountain bike race at the end of July, which means it's kind of just all smooth sailing from here until that date, which is great because you get a whole bunch of these weeks in a row and you can really build up the fighters. This isn't necessarily groundbreaking advice, but you know what? Repetitions build skill, and the more repetitions we can get in between now and when I leave for BC, the better off everybody will be in the class. That's the goal. Make better athletes. How's that road noise treating you? I've got rear wipers on, front wipers on, the engine's loud. I'm using the onboard mic for the camera. This is some quality content here. Very professional.